All right, Kaylin, thank you so very much. We're being joined now by our State House insiders tonight. Dave Wilson, our Republican strategist. Jim Felder, our Democratic strategist. Guys, let's dive into the voter turnout today. Low voter turnout in a lot of areas here in the Midlands. Dave, what are you hearing about that?
Yeah, I checked out several of the precincts in Lexington County this afternoon, knowing that we were going to be preparing for this evening. And at 3 o'clock this afternoon, the Bar Road precincts, the two in Bar Road area there in the heart of Lexington, were at 5 and 6% voter turnout. Now, I talked with some folks who were down in the Low Country. Those who were in the 1st and 7th congressional districts had a lot more turnout because there was the contested races there with what's going on in the 1st district with Nancy Mace and Katie Arrington, and then the race against Tom Rice with Russell Fry taking a big chunk of that.
We're going to touch on that in a moment, but Jim, you were hearing from senior citizens today, right?
Yeah,
could that have affected voter turnout?
It did. I believe it did. Getting a sample ballot, who's running, who do I vote for, where do I vote? And the complaint was that we don't see anything in the newspapers telling who the candidates are, like it used to be back in the old days. You'd have a whole list of candidates.
Right.
I don't have a computer. I don't know how to pull off a sample ballot. I mean, I would say 100 of calls a day just on that issue, not knowing what to do. So I directed somebody to call your children, your next door neighbor, have them pull a sample ballot off of the computer. But that turned a lot of people off, not a lot of seniors. And so they're complaining now. They say, we ought to expand early voting to 30 days instead of 2. Give us more time.
Right.
So.
And that's, I talked with a few folks who had put out get out the vote type of messaging. And the number one thing that people would click on emails and things that would go out would be, show me my sample ballot.
Yeah.
Because I have no idea. You and I both get phone calls and texts throughout the week of, who's a good person to vote for? Tell me about this particular race. And we take that job seriously.
Sure.
And when we look at that, you realize, JR, there were not a whole lot of people, especially here in the Midlands, who were aware of even the elections going on necessarily, unlike what you see down in the 1st and 7th, where they're tired of the commercials running constantly.
I want to talk about the 1st and the 7th districts because President Trump, the former president, testing his power in South Carolina, backing Katie Arrington against Nancy Mace, the incumbent, and backing Russell Fry against Tom Rice in the 7th district. What happens if Trump's candidates lose in South Carolina tonight, Jim?
Well, if they lose, it means that 2024 election may be not Trump's time again. But that is a problem. There's so many people in the 7th, what, 8 people are running in that 7th congressional district. Got to be a runoff. I'm sure nobody's going to get 50% plus on that. So that's going to certainly take some of the limelight off of the Trump push in the state.
But on the flip side, Dave, let's say Tom Rice is not the Republican nominee tonight, or this heads to a runoff, and let's say Nancy Mace loses tonight. What does that say about Trump's power?
This really is a proxy war, so to speak, between, I would say, between Donald Trump and Nikki Haley right now, especially in the race in the 1st congressional district. They're both testing the waters right now, and I think you take a look at Donald Trump from a businessman's standpoint. And he's going to sit there and he's going to look at the math of which races did I win, which races did I lose, where did I win, where did I lose. And that, as Jim said a moment ago, becomes the barometer of whether or not he's going to, this is his testing of the waters for 2024. How much do I still have? Where can I gain some steam? Will it work? If Rice ends up losing and Russell Fry ends up winning, then that is a huge statement on behalf of the president, which is unique for Horry County. I mean, that is a very strong, hard Republican area, and Donald Trump won that by almost 60%.
And of course, Trump upset with Congressman Rice because he voted to impeach the president a while back. And of course, the president did campaign in the Midlands for both of those candidates back in March. Guys?
Gerald, just one other thing on the low turnout. For example, candidates who didn't have opposition were not on the ballot. So some of the calls that came into me said, well, why isn't so-and-so on the ballot? Well, he doesn't have opposition.
And as we get into the night, I think we'll begin to break down and see because there were 41 contested House seats. That's a third of the House in the primaries alone are being contested in this particular election. That's going to have a big impact.
All right, the polls have closed. We'll keep you updated both on air and online throughout the evening, and our State House insiders will be with us throughout the night as well.